time to talk some NHL. The playoffs begin on Monday, and joining us now is the one, the only, the man of the hour, Psihogios of NorthStar Bets. Stevie, how you doing?
Doing well, thanks. Just as excited as you guys are for the playoffs, so let's get to it.
Absolutely. Before we get into specific matchups and who we think can come out of the East, the West, win the Stanley Cup, all that, when it comes to betting the playoffs, do you have a specific strategy that you use, or is it a game-by-game thing for you?
Honestly, it's very game by game. I think it's best to be like water, be flexible, be malleable in these playoff series because a lot can change from game to game. It's a little different than the regular season, especially when matchups come into play and last change. There's some teams that we'll talk about that are good examples of that. They showed last year. Home, very good. On the road, their struggles showed. So I think it's good to be flexible come postseason time.
Stevie, when you're looking at betting in the playoffs, everybody wants to put their eyes on the superstars, not only bettors, but also opposing teams. I'm going to ask you this. Is it smart for me to bet the over on Connor McDavid points on every game this first round series against the LA Kings?
I would say no, because the LA Kings are a very stingy group defensively. Goaltending is not their forte. They've had some struggles. Korpisalo's been good since arriving, but they are very stingy defensively. If you look at the last matchup between these two teams, another low-scoring, tight-checking game where McDavid didn't do a whole lot in that matchup. So I'd be a little careful. This is not a matchup that I think Edmonton is going to win every game in a shootout, and it's going to be just goals every minute. I think it's going to be a lower-scoring, tight-checking game. So game-by-game basis, like I said, one game at a time. Take it as you will with McDavid.
All right, Stevie. So let's start in the East, though. Now, I suspect that you might have a slight, biased opinion on the Bruins, given by your background and our previous
what gives that away?
But fair enough. Listen, they are the team to beat. As simple as that. What a season it was. But behind them, and who would you say is the dark horse to provide most value to progress to at least deep or progress to the final?
I think in the Eastern Conference, it's a team that I've been worried about all season long that maybe hasn't played their best hockey yet, but they're getting into the playoffs, and they're playing a team right now that isn't very tested come postseason time, and that is the New York Rangers. They played the Devils in the first round, and look, no disrespect to New Jersey, great regular season, but this group was not in the playoffs a year ago. This New York Rangers team made it all the way to the Eastern Conference final. I think that's a team, when you're looking a little further down the board, they can cause some trouble and they can wreak some havoc in the East. And Shesterkin hasn't been his best season, and there's been a lot of areas on this team where you wonder maybe why is the production where you'd expect it to be, especially after the deadline, adding Tarasenko and Kane and maybe not seeing the best results with them in the lineup. They're a team, look out. If they get hot and they play this New Jersey team that hasn't been tested, I think New York can definitely make a big run in the Eastern Conference.
We're speaking with Stevie Psihogios of NorthStar Bets. Stevie, I'm looking at the East, and we're all set in terms of playoff matchups, and I don't see any sweeps here. I mean, maybe the Bruins against the Panthers, but I think all across the board in the East, it should be pretty tight, maybe even going all the way in some series as well.
Yeah, the biggest dark horse I have winning in round one is the Islanders. I think they end up beating the Carolina Hurricanes. This is a team that went 9-9-1 without Andrei Svechnikov. Not very impressive. The Islanders, they've been battling tooth and nail to get into the playoffs. The addition of Bo Horvat, they're 17-9-1 since adding Horvat. So the results have been pretty good on Long Island since they made that trade. Sorokin is one of those goaltenders that can for sure steal you a series, especially against a team like Carolina, who you have questions about what they're going to do between the pipes. And not only that, just look at last year's postseason. Carolina did not win a single game on the road. They made it all the way to game 7 of round 2 after playing 7 games in round 1, and they didn't win a single road game. So that is a big question mark. Can the Canes get it done on the road? We've seen Rod Brind'Amour dominate the matchups at home, but a lot to be desired when they go away.
Nothing would bring me more joy than seeing Bo Horvat get swept out of the playoffs in the first round after those asinine comments he made about the Canucks and the Canucks fans. Asinine, yeah.
He went after the Canucks fan.
He did. You know what? He's dead to me now.
This guy just went after Kevin Kiermaier for hamming it up to the Jays fan. Horvat does the exact same thing, and it's asinine comments.
Yeah, he's talking about me and my people. You can't say that.
All right, go
ahead.
I
want to talk about the Bruins and Panthers series because it's really interesting to me because the Panthers last year were one of the best teams in the NHL, if
Yeah.
not the best in the regular season. And here they go up against the Boston Bruins. You have guys like Matthew Tkachuk, Barkov. They have pieces there. Can they provide the Bruins? I'm not going to say they're going to beat the Bruins, but can they provide the Bruins with a scare in round one?
I would not be shocked to see the Cats win. I'm not going to say they're going to win any more than 2 games. I don't think they really push Boston. I think when you look at this team, I don't know if it's the players or the coaching or what have you. I would be more inclined to blame the players because we saw this happen last year with a different coach. But this is a team that doesn't play with a whole lot of structure. They give up a lot of odd man rushes the other way. They get caught bad defensively. And you look at who is propelling them to victory right now. It's Alex Lyon, a 30-year-old veteran, been everywhere, backup goalie. He's been phenomenal. But that shouldn't be the case when you're paying Sergei Bobrovsky $10 million and you have the roster they do. This is a team that's underperformed all year. I wouldn't put more than 2 wins when I'm going through the projections for this series. I think Boston ends up taking this series, and it's going to be pretty comfortable.
All right, to the big elephant in the room, Leafs, Tampa Bay. North Star have Leafs slight favorites in this series. Now, listen, Tampa have played very average hockey for 2 months now. It's not just the last couple of weeks. It's been 2 months. Fatigue, over the hill, all these words are being used as narrative forms. Is that just naive once the puck drops on Tuesday?
I think so. It's a different animal, the postseason. We've seen it time and time again. And this is a team that it's easy to get just kind of complacent when you've been to 3 Stanley Cups in a row. Like, you're not going to view March and April hockey the same way you do April postseason hockey. It's a different beast altogether. One thing, though, that is important to note is that this is a different Tampa Bay team. No Ryan McDonough, who was a big part of last year's team. No Andre Palat. They've lost some guys who have been key contributors throughout the years. I know they gave up a lot to get Janot, and he suffered a scary injury, and things haven't maybe worked out for them. I think this is the year, though, the Maple Leafs have to beat the Tampa Bay Lightning. Stop me, you've heard me say this before, but this is the year that the Maple Leafs have to win a series because this streak has been gone on for far too long. It's been 2004, the last time the Maple Leafs won a playoff series. They have to do it this year. There's no excuses. This is the best team that Kyle Dubas has ever put together. If you're not good enough to beat this Lightning team, I don't know what to say. They finished 6th in the Eastern Conference. If you can't beat the 6th best team in the Eastern Conference, I don't know what else to say.
Yeah, and the perception around the league right now is that Tampa Bay is vulnerable and they're running out of steam. If that's the case, then they're in trouble against the Toronto Maple Leafs. Okay, let's move over to the West. I mean, a lot to talk about here. Top teams to come out of the West. You have Colorado and Edmonton. Edmonton, we talked about already having an interesting matchup against the LA Kings. What about Colorado and their chances of getting through to the next round? I know their matchup is still up in the air, but they really have to be true to that number and as the favorites in the West.
They are the favorites in the West, and they've been that way all year. I don't think it's justified, to be honest. Even if they win the Central Division, which, you look at their matchup, you got to give them a pretty good shot to do that. They'll probably play Seattle in the first round. I don't think they're the favorites in the West. I think the Oilers have been the better team. They played the other night. I know it's just one game, but Edmonton won, and it was a big game for both teams. Both teams fighting for first in the division at that point. I think Edmonton is the better squad, especially when you look at Gabriel Landeskog not being back. I know Makar's going to come back, and he makes a big difference, but we haven't seen him healthy for a good portion of this season. So I think the Avalanche are vulnerable. I think this is a team that is very good, but without their captain and with Makar's health being a bit of a question mark at this time, I think the edge has to go to an Oilers team that really doesn't have any health concerns right now. This is an Oilers team going into the playoffs fully healthy. So I think Edmonton, other than Desharnais, who got hurt last night, he's been a good third pairing defenseman. But other than him, there hasn't been a lot of injuries to worry about on the Oilers. All their top guys are in and ready to go.
Sticking with the Oilers because they're my pick to win the Stanley Cup this year. But they talk about the elephant in the room, goaltending with the Oilers, right? Can Stuart Skinner be the guy? And I think this year he's proven to be an upgrade on Mike Smith. Do you see any hesitancy in Stuart Skinner's game that would be cause for concern? Or are you okay with the Oilers riding with Stuart Skinner instead of Jack Campbell throughout the playoffs?
Well, I've made it very clear how I feel about Jack Campbell on this show before. I think Edmonton, they've done the right thing going with Stuart Skinner. because you can't say you didn't give Campbell a fair shake. I mean, when you're paying a guy $5 million, you're going to run him till the wheels fall off. And the wheels fell off real quick on Jack Campbell. Didn't even make it through the first season. Talk about depreciating as soon as you get off the lot. Anyways, the Oilers, Stuart Skinner, he has been good enough. And the best part about being Stuart Skinner is that he gets to play on the same team as Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl, which means the puck is usually in the other end. You do not need to stand on your head. They do not need like vintage Carey Price to get to the Stanley Cup final. They need competent goaltending. They need what the Avalanche got out of Darcy Kemper last year. And I definitely think Stuart Skinner can provide that.
I just hope that for Jack Campbell's sake, he gets some minutes in the playoffs, does well, because I feel for Jack Campbell. You know, we watched him last year in the Leafs, a genuinely nice human being who puts way too much on his own shoulders. So hopefully he can get things figured out. Golden Knights Jets is an intriguing one for sure. Many had the Golden Knights as their pre-season picks to go all the way. Where do you think they should end up finishing this time around?
Vegas, I think Winnipeg is a bit of a tough matchup for them just because the Jets like to play tight checking, low scoring games, and they've got stability between the pipes. We don't really know what Vegas is going to bring in net come postseason time. Laurent Brossoit has been fine. He's filled in admirably, and they've gotten good goaltending from the goalies they have, but a lot of that has to do because of Bruce Cassidy's defensive first system. They've got a really strong defense in place as it is. They've got some big body guys who take out a lot of space in their own zone, but I do think that series has 7 games written all over it. I think Winnipeg gives them a tough go. Rick Bowness, we saw him coach up this the Dallas Stars last year against the Calgary Flames, took Calgary to 7 games. And the recipe for success is the exact same. He's got a hot goaltender. He's got a deep team that's got balance on offense and defense. I think he can push this Vegas Golden Knights squad to 7 games.
Yeah, I like Vegas. Also like Mini in the West, by the way, as well. Okay, Stevie, 2 minutes left. Stanley Cup winners. Give us your favorite and a dog. I need a dog. Give me one big dog that can pull this off.
So the favorite I'm going to give you, it's got to be Boston. I gotta say Boston. I'm obligated. I have to say the Bruins. But if I'm looking further down the board, I really like Minnesota. They're looking a little further down the board. The Wild at 23-1. I think Minnesota in that round 1 series, whether it's Dallas or Colorado, if you're a Wild bettor, you're kind of hoping it's the Stars, but they have the goaltending to pull off an upset. Philip Gustafsson has been phenomenal this year. His save percentage is above .930, which if you get above that range, you're talking about the best of the best. And he's been kind of overshadowed by some of the other names like Allmark, like Sorokin, but he deserves to have his name in the Vezina conversation as well. And I think with Kaprizov coming back, this is a team that's pretty deep up front. The defense got better at the deadline. I'm thinking the Wild can make a run in the Western Conference.
I love that. That's my pick. That's my dog pick. I know you didn't say the Leafs. You really want to. I'll let that one slide. Maybe when the Leafs play the Boston Bruins in the second round, we can have a bit of a jersey bet. What do you think?
Yeah. You know what? I'm game for it.
Would you wear a Leafs jersey on air?
I would wear a Leafs jersey on air, sure. And you know what? I don't know if I mentioned this on past shows, but the Maple Leafs, they haven't advanced from the first round of the playoffs since 2004. So I just wanted to bring that up. I don't know if I'm repeating myself. I can't remember, but I just wanted to bring that up.
Yeah. Ladies and gentlemen, that's Steven Psihogios making his last appearance on the Homestand Show ever. Steve, thank you so much of NorthStar Bets. Let's do this again soon.
Yeah, no worries. Thanks again for having me, guys.